how would you adapt the TLNA plan, Kennebec Neighborhood Association plan, to consider the current economic changes in our community?
There's been a lot of dedicated people with a lot of experience and knowledge in our community and in this neighborhood to put together this neighborhood plan, and I commend everybody that's actually put the time and energy to develop this. As I said before and touched on, this is going to be integrated into the downtown plan that the City of Madison is going to be working on. And to balance these concerns will be to work closely with the neighborhood association, and I would encourage them to form committees throughout the neighborhood whenever there's a particular project to work on. You know, I personally have seen this because I've been on the steering committee for the Edgewater redevelopment at Capitol Neighborhoods, because it's 3 blocks from my house. The people of the Lakewood neighborhood and all other neighborhoods throughout our community, and to bring their perspectives in and to actually balance those with, like I said, the inherent growth. Things are going to grow in this community. It's progress. It's the future that we have as a community. That being said, I would really like to expand just beyond District 2 to a citywide perspective, and to really take the voice and understand what the various neighborhoods in other districts have to say about their projects that are affecting their district, and even their perspectives about how things are happening in the 2nd district. And so, although I will say I'll be district-centric with the way I will govern, I will also keep the best interests of the City of Madison at whole in check at all times and always in mind, because that's what we all really want, is a wonderful community as a whole.
By the industrial corridor along East Washington and really working to develop that. I think with the current economic situation, a lot of sort of the hopes for that are going to sort of have to sit on the back burner for, you know, until the market recovers, which is really unfortunate, because I'd really like to see a grocery store built about level with the stores on the 800-900 blocks to really foster foot traffic. So I'd really like to work as much as is possible, given the current economic situations, to see that the East Washington Build Corridor plan does start to go forward. One thing that I'm noticing that is really going to be affected by the economy is the transportation plans associated with that, especially when it comes to, you know, the streetcars are very prominent in the study, and you know, this was worked through in a lot of, you know, in an earlier period when that was sort of still get passed, just because there's one person who's willing to fork out the money and go through the process to see the project go forward. I don't feel that we should have to, you know, sort of take what we can get. I think I'm very happy with the neighborhood plan and how it's written. And I want to see the integrity of it stand still. There's been a lot of talk with the project across the street from where I live on the 600 block of East Johnson about coming in there and developing. And I was at the neighborhood association meeting last night, and there was a very good discussion about what kind of precedents do we set if we let this go forward.
First of all, I think that the neighborhood plan, some aspects of it may be slowed by the recent economy, but the economy in no way affects the validity or the possibilities of the plan. Those are all still intact, and I believe that those will all be fulfilled in the long run. In fact, there are many aspects of the plan that are going to be able to go forward even still. The plan calls for the revitalization of the East Washington corridor, which may still be a possibility with the use of TIF down the road. The plan calls for more density in some parts of our neighborhood. At the same time, the plan does call for certain transportation measures which may not be able to be met immediately. However, at that point, that does not mean anything towards the validity of the plan. Now, looking at the plan, the ability of our neighborhood to enact the measures in that plan depends upon the ability of our leadership, the neighborhood association namely, and the alder, to correctly expound, argue for, and negotiate with the aspects of those plans, to reveal its acceptance by the entire city. I think we can do that. I think we can use it as a negotiation tool and as an arguing tool to make sure that we see the revitalization and the realization of every aspect of that plan. I fully support it. While it may be slowed by this recent economic downturn, it's not going to make a difference in the long term in the validity of whether or not the plan goes forward. The plan coincides with my vision as to how the neighborhood is going to be in 10, 15 years. This economic tempest will dissipate, and we will be able to move forward and I see Temi Lapham striding boldly into this new century as soon as the storm clouds have passed.
But one of the things that was so tremendous about the process that the neighborhood went through for this plan is the amount of public input that they got. There were surveys that went out to the neighborhood, there were several neighborhood meetings, and the community really came together and created that plan as a vision for what they thought the future should look like. I think there's a lot of very solid issues within the plan. I think that the core of it is still very good. And oddly enough, one of probably the biggest challenges that we may have is that we really tried to preserve the neighborhood by putting density more towards East Washington. And one of the challenges that we may end up having is we envision big projects happening on East Washington, and I can see perhaps some smaller projects coming in. And if we don't build the density over on East Washington, there's going to be more pressure on the neighborhood to develop within the neighborhood at a later date. So I think one of our challenges is going to be making sure that if there are projects that come forward for the East Washington corridor, they're built to the mass and scale that we sort of had anticipated. And I think that that's going to be very difficult, particularly parking is going to be an issue because building underground parking is extremely expensive. And in order for us to sort of envision, to get the plan to really end up being what we had envisioned, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to crack that parking issue. I know that there's a lot of plans that are going on with the Downtown Parking Committee, and hopefully we can figure out some shared parking for the corridor and figure out how we can get everybody where they need to go on the isthmus. And I think that's probably going to be one of our biggest challenges.